A man insults Elon Musk on a first-class flight and instantly regrets it when the truth is revealed. The air was charged with a sense of urgency as passengers moved through the gates at Los Angeles International Airport. Flight 3, on December 17th, to Tokyo Narita, was set to depart in an hour, and the first-class passengers were beginning to gather. Among them was Oliver Bennett. Oliver was used to standing out. His company, a flashy software startup, had recently hit its first billion-dollar valuation. His social media feed was a parade of self-congratulatory posts. "Disruption is my middle name." His latest caption read beneath a photo of him holding a glass of champagne, "Mr. Bennett, welcome aboard." The flight attendant greeted him warmly, though the forced smile hinted she knew the type. Oliver nodded curtly and stepped into the plush first-class cabin, where each seat resembled a private pod, complete with reclining features and a personal screen. Seat 2AE, his home for the next 12 hours. He removed his blazer with a flourish, letting it drape over his seat, and retrieved a set of noise-canceling headphones. A glance at the seat assignment beside him showed it was still vacant. Good. Maybe I'll get some peace for once. Moments later, a figure appeared, slipping into 2B. The man's attire, a plain hoodie and well-worn sneakers, was a stark contrast to Oliver's sharp, tailored ensemble. His face was shadowed by a baseball cap, and he moved with the quiet ease of someone accustomed to blending in. Oliver barely glanced up, typing away on his laptop as the man settled into his seat. "Evening," the man offered casually. "Yeah, sure," Oliver muttered without looking. He was too engrossed in drafting yet another tweet to his 500,000 followers. As the cabin door closed and the engines roared to life, Oliver felt a twinge of curiosity. Something about the man seemed oddly familiar, but he couldn't place it. Probably just another tech guy trying to live the dream, he thought dismissively, leaning back in his seat. The flight attendant walked by offering champagne. The man declined, opting instead for a bottle of water. Oliver smirked to himself. "Water? Really? Might as well be in coach," he whispered loud enough for the man to hear, but the man said nothing, simply offering a faint smile. As the plane reached cruising altitude, Oliver's natural need to dominate any room or cabin kicked in. He finished his champagne in one gulp, placed the glass on the tray with a clink, and turned toward the man in 2B. "So, what do you do?" Oliver asked, his tone dripping with the kind of interest that wasn't genuine. The man turned slightly, his face still obscured by the cap. "I'm in tech," he replied simply. Oliver grinned. "Ah, same here. Bet we've got some war stories to share." He leaned back and crossed his legs, ready to steer the conversation toward his favorite topic, himself. But the man didn't bite. He only nodded lightly and went back to scrolling through his phone. Oliver wasn't used to being ignored. His curiosity morphed into irritation. "You know," he began, his voice raised just enough to catch the attention of nearby passengers, "the tech world is full of people who get way too much credit for half-baked ideas. Take Elon Musk, for example. Everyone's so busy calling him a genius, they forget how reckless he is." The man in 2B paused, his finger hovering over the phone screen, but he didn't look up. Encouraged by the lack of response, Oliver continued. "SpaceX, sure, it's impressive if you like throwing billions at exploding rockets. Tesla, overrated. And don't even get me started on Twitter, that whole takeover. A disaster." A faint chuckle escaped from the man in 2B. It was almost imperceptible, but it lit a fire in Oliver. He leaned forward, ready to hammer his point home. "You think I'm wrong?" Oliver challenged. "No," the man said, his voice calm, almost amused. "I think you're passionate." Oliver frowned, unsure if it was a compliment or an insult. "Passionate?" he asked. "I call it realistic. People like Musk, they just ride the wave of hype. Nothing more." A few passengers glanced over, now subtly listening in. Oliver thrived under the attention, mistaking it for admiration. The man in 2B, however, seemed entirely unbothered. "Well," the man said finally, looking up slightly, though his cap still shielded much of his face, "everyone's entitled to their opinion." Oliver rolled his eyes, dismissing the man's silence. "Yeah, but facts are facts. Musk is all show. People like me, Real innovators. We're the ones building the future. The man smiled politely and returned to his phone. Oliver smirked, convinced he'd pegged him as another clueless wannabe. Little did he know, the man's calm wasn't ignorance, it was restraint. As the hum of engines filled the cabin, first-class passengers settled into their routines, but Oliver couldn't relax. His irritation grew as 2B stayed quiet, answering pointed remarks with a smirk or curt reply. "Let me guess," Oliver said, leaning in. "You're a startup guy, crypto or AI, right? Everyone's chasing those trends." The man glanced up, expression neutral. "Not exactly." The vagueness only stoked Oliver's frustration. He thrived on attention, and 2B's indifference felt like an insult. "What's your take on Musk, then?" Oliver asked, his voice sharper now. "I mean, if you're in tech, you must have an opinion." The man hesitated, then shrugged. "He's done some interesting things." "Interesting?" Oliver laughed. "The guy's a contradiction, saving the planet while flying private jets, hyping Mars while ignoring Earth." A flicker of amusement or irritation crossed the man's face but vanished quickly. "Maybe he's doing what he thinks is best," the man replied neutrally. "Huh." The flight attendant arrived with their meals, vegetarian for 2B, steak for Oliver. As they ate, Oliver noticed the man's calm demeanor, as though nothing could ruffle him. "Must be nice not to have a care in the world," Oliver muttered. The man glanced at him but stayed silent. Oliver's curiosity grew. There was a quiet confidence about his seatmate, an unshakable presence. Even the flight attendant seemed unusually respectful, one murmuring, "Let me know if you need anything, sir." Oliver noticed this and frowned. "Who is this guy?" He leaned forward, pretending to adjust his seat. The man's face was still partially obscured by the baseball cap, but something about his jawline, the way he carried himself, nagged at Oliver. As the cabin lights dimmed and the passengers around them settled in for the long haul, Oliver decided to let it go. Just some eccentric rich guy, he thought. Nothing more. He put on his headphones and reclined his seat, missing the subtle glance his seatmate gave him, a look that hinted at something far beyond what Oliver could imagine. The hours passed, and the cabin remained quiet, except for the occasional clinking of glasses and the rustle of blankets. Now, several drinks into his flight, Oliver felt loose and emboldened. He leaned back, scanning the cabin for any new distractions. His gaze landed once again on the man in 2B. "All right," Oliver said, breaking the silence between them. "I give up. You've got to tell me, what's your deal? You've been sitting there all calm and mysterious. Let me guess, you're some venture capitalist or an eccentric trust fund kid." The man chuckled softly, his eyes not leaving the page of the book he had just opened. "Close," he replied, though he offered no elaboration. "Come on," Oliver pushed, his voice carrying a hint of challenge. "You can't just sit here like some enigma and not spill a little." The man finally looked up, meeting Oliver's gaze directly for the first time. His eyes were sharp, observant, and suddenly very familiar. But before Oliver could piece it together, a flight attendant approached their row with an air of formality. "Excuse me, Mr. Musk," she said, her voice respectful but professional. "The captain wanted me to let you know that your connection in Tokyo is confirmed, and they'll be ready for you upon landing." Oliver froze. The words didn't register at first, as if his brain needed a moment to process. "Mr. Musk?" The man in 2B offered the flight attendant a polite nod. "Thank you," he said, his tone warm but understated. The pieces clicked into place with a jarring finality. The hoodie, the unassuming demeanor, the quiet confidence. It wasn't just anyone sitting next to him. It was Elon Musk. Oliver's mouth went dry, and his heart thudded in his chest as he replayed the last few hours in his mind. Every insult, every critique, every mocking jab, it had all been directed at the very man he thought was an untouchable public figure, miles away from his life. For the first time on the flight, Oliver was utterly speechless. Elon Musk adjusted his cap slightly and turned back to his book, as if nothing had happened. But Oliver's discomfort was palpable. His bravado, so robust earlier, now crumbled under the weight of sheer humiliation. The surrounding passengers, who had been pretending not to eavesdrop, now exchanged subtle glances, their expressions a mix of amusement and secondhand embarrassment. Oliver cleared his throat, desperate to regain composure. So, you're Elon Musk? Elon closed his book and placed it gently on his tray table. That's what they tell me, he said, his tone light but edged with humor. Oliver's. I didn't mean anything by what I said earlier. Just, talking. You can't take these things personally. Elon tilted his head, studying Oliver with an unreadable expression. Then, with a small smile, he said, "Don't worry, I don't." The cabin's tension was palpable. Oliver fumbled for his drink, trying to steady his nerves, while Elon remained calm, only adding to Oliver's discomfort. You're probably used to criticism, right? Comes with the territory, Oliver ventured. Elon leaned back, thoughtful. Criticism is useful when it's constructive. Was yours constructive? Oliver flushed. I didn't know I was talking to you. Elon's smile widened slightly. Does it matter who's listening? Valid points stand on their own. Oliver was stunned into silence, but Elon wasn't finished. You mentioned Tesla, Elon said evenly. Do you know how many lives our driver assistance technology has saved? How many accidents it's prevented? Oliver shifted uncomfortably. I hadn't thought about that. And SpaceX, Elon continued. You called it reckless. Did you know we've cut the cost of space access by over 90%? That we're working on technologies to protect humanity from extinction-level events? Oliver sank into his seat, feeling smaller with each word. Oliver opened his mouth but said nothing, silenced by the weight of Elon's words. And Twitter, Elon continued, his tone softening, is chaotic. Yes, but chaos sparks change. Ideas need friction to evolve. Without it, there's no progress. The first-class cabin seemed to hold its breath. Elon spoke not with anger or defensiveness, but with quiet, unshakable confidence. Oliver swallowed. I didn't mean to. I didn't think you'd be here. Elon leaned in slightly, his gaze steady. The truth doesn't change based on the audience. Maybe consider that next time. It wasn't harsh, but it stung more than any insult. Oliver sank back into his seat, feeling small in the spacious cabin. For the rest of the flight, Oliver was unusually quiet, replaying every smug comment and insult in his head. Embarrassment and regret weighed on him. Elon, unfazed, returned to his book, acknowledging flight attendants with calm professionalism that now made perfect sense to Oliver. The moment humbled him deeply. It wasn't just about being called out, but realizing how little he truly understood the people and ideas he criticized. As the cabin dimmed, Oliver hesitated, then leaned over. Mr. Musk, he whispered. Elon looked up, neutral but attentive. I'm sorry, Oliver said sincerely. I was out of line. It's easy to criticize from the sidelines, but I can't imagine the weight of what you do. Elon studied him briefly, then nodded. Apology accepted. Progress always faces resistance, especially from those who don't see the full picture. The key is to keep moving forward. Oliver nodded, throat tight, for once at a loss for words. As the plane descended into Tokyo, Oliver stared at the glowing city, reflecting on how often he'd dismissed visionaries like Elon, those who dared to tackle the impossible. Disembarking, Elon offered a small smile. Good luck with your work. I hope it makes a difference. Oliver watched him disappear into the crowd, feeling a rare humility. He didn't know what he'd do with this perspective, but he knew one thing. He couldn't go back to who he was before,